At my sister's rehearsal dinner, I caught her cornering my boyfriend against the wall saying, "If you ever get bored with her, you know who to call." I had my phone ready and sent everything to her fiancé. What my sister Melissa didn't realize was that she had just made the biggest strategic mistake of her life. I'm Rachel, 26, a senior marketing strategist at a Fortune 500 consulting firm, earning $98,000 annually, and my analytical mind had been documenting her pattern of manipulation for years. This moment would trigger a calculated response that would expose 5 years of systematic deception and destroy her carefully constructed wedding fantasy in the most public way possible. My relationship with Melissa had been toxic since high school, but I had learned to weaponize my professional skills against her amateur-level schemes. As someone who specializes in competitive market analysis and strategic communications, I understood exactly how to gather intelligence, build compelling cases, and deploy information for maximum impact. Melissa thought she was dealing with the same emotional teenager from our past rivalries, but she was about to discover that I had evolved into something far more dangerous. The rehearsal dinner incident wasn't isolated. For months, I had been systematically documenting Melissa's inappropriate behavior toward my boyfriend Alex through screenshots, recorded conversations, and detailed logs with timestamps. My professional training in data collection and pattern recognition had taught me that isolated incidents mean nothing, but systematic documentation creates unassailable evidence. Every flirtatious text she sent him, every inappropriate comment at family gatherings, every time she accidentally touched him, had been cataloged with the precision I used for corporate intelligence gathering. What made this situation particularly satisfying was that Melissa had no idea about my professional capabilities or resources. While she saw me as just another family member to manipulate, I possessed strategic advantages that would allow me to completely dismantle her wedding and reputation. My network included several attorneys specializing in fraud and defamation, private investigators I had worked with on corporate due diligence, and communications specialists who understood crisis management. More importantly, my analytical background had taught me to identify vulnerabilities and exploit them systematically. The financial dynamics strongly favored my position in ways Melissa couldn't comprehend. My $98,000 salary provided economic independence that allowed me to operate without family approval or support. I maintained comprehensive legal insurance through my employer, access to professional investigation services, and most critically, the ability to fund extended strategic campaigns without depleting my resources. Melissa, working as a part-time administrative assistant earning maybe $28,000 annually, operated from a position of complete financial vulnerability. My investigation into Melissa's background had revealed systematic deception that went far beyond sibling rivalry. Through my professional contacts and data analysis, I had uncovered evidence of her maintaining active dating profiles throughout her 5-year relationship with Theo, documentation of dates with other men through social media cross-referencing, and financial records showing expenditures that didn't align with a committed relationship. This wasn't jealousy or competition. This was a serial cheater who had successfully deceived a genuinely good man for years. The strategic error my family made was assuming I would handle this situation emotionally rather than professionally. After witnessing Melissa corner Alex in the kitchen, my immediate response wasn't anger or confrontation. It was systematic evidence collection and strategic planning. I had learned through years of corporate negotiations that emotional reactions provide temporary satisfaction, while strategic responses deliver permanent victories. Melissa expected tears and family drama, but she was about to face a professional-level investigation and public exposure campaign. My first strategic move was to conduct comprehensive stakeholder analysis to identify all parties who needed to understand Melissa's true character. Theo obviously needed the complete truth, but I also recognized that their wedding involved approximately 150 guests, multiple vendors, and significant financial commitments that would amplify the consequences of exposure. My communications background had taught me that timing and audience selection determine the impact of any revelation, and I was planning for maximum strategic effect. The conversation with my mother after the kitchen incident provided critical intelligence about family dynamics and potential obstacles to my strategy. When she begged me to put on a happy face for the wedding and suggested that whatever happens afterward happens, I realized that my parents were actively enabling Melissa's deception to protect their own reputation. This revelation shifted my strategic approach from family-based intervention to independent action, knowing I would face unified family opposition. Alex's accidental video recording of Melissa's seduction attempt provided the perfect evidence foundation for my case. As someone trained in presentation strategy and persuasive communications, I understood that video evidence eliminates deniability and creates emotional impact that written descriptions cannot match. The recording captured not just her words, but her body language, tone, and Alex's obvious discomfort, creating a comprehensive documentation package that would be impossible to dismiss or rationalize. My decision to compile a comprehensive dossier rather than simply forward the video demonstrated strategic thinking that Melissa couldn't counter. I spent 3 days gathering additional evidence, screenshots of her dating app, matches from friends who had seen her profiles, photographs of her with other men during her supposedly exclusive period with Theo, financial record inconsistencies I had noticed during family gatherings, and witness statements from mutual friends who had suspected her infidelity but lacked concrete proof. The email I sent to Theo represented professional-level, strategic communication designed for maximum credibility and impact. Rather than emotional accusations or family drama, I structured it like a corporate intelligence briefing, with clear evidence categories, verifiable sources, and specific documentation. I provided him with contact information for witnesses, timestamps for all evidence, and detailed explanations of how each piece of evidence fit into the larger pattern of deception. This approach ensured that even if he initially dismissed the information, he would be compelled to investigate further. The week-long silence following my email provided perfect validation of my strategic patience approach. Rather than demanding immediate responses or creating additional pressure, I allowed Theo the time and space to conduct his own verification process. My experience in corporate negotiations had taught me that people need time to process paradigm-shifting information, and rushing the process often triggers defensive reactions rather than acceptance of truth. My analysis of wedding logistics had revealed that Theo's decision to wait until the ceremony for his revelation would create maximum social and financial consequences for Melissa. A private confrontation would have allowed her to manipulate the narrative and minimize public exposure. But his strategic choice to expose her deception in front of 150 wedding guests created irreversible reputation damage and public humiliation that matched the scope of her betrayal. The financial impact alone, lost deposits, vendor payments, and guest expenses, would exceed $45,000 in wasted resources. The wedding day execution exceeded my strategic projections for effective consequence delivery. When Theo began reading my email from the altar instead of his vows, the impact was immediate and devastating. The video evidence played through the sound system ensured that every guest witnessed Melissa's attempted seduction, while his additional verification of the dating evidence demonstrated that this was systematic deception rather than isolated incidents. The public nature of the exposure created social consequences that would follow Melissa permanently. The immediate aftermath provided perfect demonstration of strategic superiority over emotional reactions. While Melissa dissolved into hysterical panic mode, I maintained professional composure and extracted myself from the situation efficiently. My ability to remain calm while witnessing the consequences of my strategy validated years of professional training in high-pressure negotiations and crisis management. Melissa's emotional breakdown in front of 150 guests created additional reputation damage beyond the initial exposure. My mother's post-wedding confrontation revealed the full extent of my family's manipulation and emotional blackmail tactics. Her accusation that I was vindictive and jealous represented classic projection designed to make me doubt my strategic decision-making. However, my training in psychological manipulation recognition allowed me to identify these tactics immediately and reject the guilt-based pressure she attempted to apply. Her statement that I was just as bad as my sister confirmed that my parents would never hold Melissa accountable for her destructive behavior. The strategic decision to immediately block family members rather than engage in defensive responses demonstrated professional boundary management that personal relationships often lack. My corporate experience had taught me that once people choose to operate in bad faith, continued engagement only provides them additional opportunities for manipulation. By cutting off their access to emotional manipulation tactics, I force them to confront the consequences of their enabling behavior without giving them targets for blame deflection. The social aftermath vindicated every aspect of my strategic approach as extended family members and mutual friends reached out to express support for my actions. Their validation confirmed that my careful documentation and professional presentation of evidence had created a credible case that withstood scrutiny from objective observers. Multiple people shared that they had suspected Melissa's infidelity, but lacked the courage or evidence to intervene, which validated my decision to take strategic action despite family pressure. Theo's eventual thank you email provided the ultimate professional satisfaction, recognition from the person I had protected that my intervention was both necessary and appreciated. His acknowledgement that he had occasionally had reservations about Melissa, but needed concrete evidence to make informed decisions, validated my strategic approach of comprehensive documentation rather than emotional accusations. His comment that I was the only person willing to provide him with truth demonstrated the value of professional courage over social convenience. The engagement announcement and social media response 3 months later provided clear evidence of complete strategic victory. Alex's proposal and our celebration generated overwhelming support from extended family and friends, while my parents' inability to publicly oppose our engagement without appearing petty demonstrated their reduced influence in family dynamics. Their failure to congratulate us created additional social pressure as relatives noticed and questioned their conspicuous absence from celebration comments. The long-term consequences for Melissa extended far beyond wedding humiliation to permanent reputation damage within our social circles. Her dating prospects were severely limited by widespread knowledge of her cheating history. Her financial situation was devastated by wedding-related expenses with no return, and her social standing was permanently damaged by public exposure of systematic deception. The consequences were proportional to years of manipulation and perfectly calibrated to prevent future similar behavior. My professional reputation was enhanced rather than damaged by the strategic approach I employed throughout this situation. Colleagues who learned about the situation praised my systematic evidence gathering and strategic patience, while industry contacts noted my ability to maintain professional standards even in personal conflicts. The experience became a case study in effective strategic communication and crisis management that benefited my career advancement. The ultimate validation of my strategic approach was the complete reversal of family dynamics, from Melissa-centered enablement to accountability-based relationships. Family members who initially opposed my actions eventually acknowledged that exposure was necessary and that my parents' enabling behavior had contributed to the destructive patterns. The new family equilibrium resulted in healthier relationships based on honest communication rather than manipulation tolerance. Today, my relationship with Alex is stronger than ever, built on mutual respect and shared commitment to honest communication. We've learned to identify and counter manipulation tactics together, creating a partnership that can withstand external pressure and family dysfunction. Our engagement represents not just personal happiness, but strategic victory over people who tried to undermine our relationship through deception and betrayal. The most satisfying aspect of this entire situation is that Melissa's attempt to sabotage my relationship ultimately destroyed her own life while strengthening everything she tried to damage. Her strategic incompetence, combined with my professional skills and systematic approach, resulted in consequences that were both perfectly calibrated and permanently effective. She learned that amateur-level manipulation tactics cannot succeed against professional-level strategic thinking and execution,